Long story direct. Thanks, sir. Adjustments to the agenda tonight?
I'd like to add brief discussion of the revised conceptual plan and cost sheet for purposes of a waterways grant application to be submitted by 4/1 by Keys and Van
And where shall we put that?
Probably last.
Under unfinished business or new business?
Take your pick.
It's your request.
We can put it at the end, under new business.
So that'd be number 12, waterway grant. Anything else? Conflict of interest this evening? And first public comment.
Janet Baggy, 6987 Cook Road. I just have a few things I want to go over. I know a lot of people are gone right now, it's spring break. And if anybody was checking on the website tonight, or just yesterday, today, to see about this meeting and what's it about, if I click on it, the only thing it says, it's a budget meeting. Yes, go on your website right now and check it.
Did you go on the agendas page?
Go check on, right on the open page where a lot of people click on for tonight's meeting.
Yeah, that's not.
The public notice. Okay. And also, I just wanted to say that, sure, I spent 3 hours talking to Ron about an event barn. I pay taxes, I'm a registered voter. I have the right to give my opinion as a public. Same with the farmer, same with anybody else. It doesn't matter if I'm biased against them or for them. You should be asking everybody, no matter what it is, and then to come to a conclusion to make questions for your survey. We shouldn't be singled out. Also, at the last meeting, okay, one second here, I had it all here together. So, it was stated in here that the event barns in here are much like the farming operations, as well referred to the Right of Farm Act. You think that you should know that they are not part of the Right to Farm Act. And if you are a farmer, you should know that they are not part of the Right to Farm Act. Also, that it was stated in here that there was, Lawson had found that there would make it illegal to prohibit event barns. There was some legislation right now. I have that right here too. House Bill 5947, which is actually sitting at the House, only just got sent to the Agricultural Committee. There is nothing in the laws for that right now. Also in here, I know there's a lot of things in the minutes, things that were said that are not in the minutes, that's not getting put in, that the public should probably hear on that. Also in here, you stated to my neighbor that there was no application for event barns ever done. I have a letter here dated July 24, 2018, and it is from the Williams, the property that's on 72 to Cook Road, and it says, it has only now come to our attention that we should have filed a request for amendment Article 19. When we began our engagement process with the Board and Planning Commission back in early 2017. Please accept this letter and $300 application fee as our official request for amendment to Article 10. So they did pay for it, but, you know, I don't know if you still have your $300 or you send it back, because then on July 31st is when they bailed, because they decided that it wasn't gonna work for them. So, you say a lot of stuff, and I think that you should really be aware of what you're saying before you say things to the public if you don't know what they are and don't have factual information on them.
Thank you. Anyone else this evening? Yes.
My name's Tom Trubinsky. I live at 7021 Cook Road, and I just had a comment on the survey because I assume that you're gonna take up that issue or the finalization of the survey. In the survey that we had here, the draft, it kind of intimates that this is a historic barn that is gonna be used for the event barn. And it gives the impression in the preliminary here of the survey that this is what it's about. Yeah, last time when we had meetings and they were proposing ordinance, it just turned out in the ordinance it was just gonna be a structure. And I think this just gives the wrong impression to the people who are gonna take this survey that this is for historic structures that are gonna be used. And yet, last time, the Williams who applied for that weren't even farmers, and there was no structure on the property itself. So how can you issue an event barn for a structure that's not even there? So I'm kind of assuming that if people see this and go by this, think it's a historic barn, and then all of a sudden when the ordinance comes out, it could be a brand new structure that's come on the property. So I'd like to get that in before you go on the issue of the survey.
Thank you. Anyone else tonight?
Good evening, welcome back, sir.
Good evening.
Feeling better?
Thank you.
Heidi Ballmuth, 8371 Winnie Lane, Williamsburg, Michigan. Okay, I just want to make sure we're not treating this survey like we treated the marijuana survey. Because it seems like the marijuana survey took the majority, didn't ask all the minority. We opted out, FYI, down the road they opted in, we're losing revenue. So I'm hoping that this event barn doesn't turn into that. So maybe we ought to replace the age question and tell the truth that this survey is gonna be exactly like the marijuana survey. This is it, you're gonna get a vote. Because right now, the minority of us are sitting here and the majority of this might get it, might not. Because I'm noticing that there's a lot of people in this community and a couple that sit on around this table that don't use computers or email. So I'd also like to see Lindsay's letter, her e-letter, somehow put in with this event survey, either attached to it or condense it, so this becomes one page, this goes on the back. There's a lot of critical information here, and I don't know if we're ready to do this yet, because it's like teeter-totter. Sometimes we say one thing, then we say another. We're all over the map here between what is gonna be and what should be, or what our opinion is. So we're in a hurry, but remember that if we're gonna treat this the same way as the marijuana survey, let's at least make that concrete in the survey, that that's what we're doing. Because we should be worrying about fixing our roads, because right now our roads are terrible. But we're playing this, so I'll be back.
Anyone else tonight? Ron Pop, 6237 Elkview Drive, Whitewater Township. I have an issue with what took place at the 312 meeting. Specifically, Paul, I had provided a correspondence that stated exactly how I felt about event barns, but yet you verbally portrayed an opposite opinion. I do have a recording of it. Basically, you stated that if Ron were here, you knew that I would support moving forward with the event barn survey. So, I don't know how we got an opposite opinion, but I want to make sure that everyone in attendance here understands that, and I would like this to appear in the minutes verbatim, that that was an incorrect assumption. Okay? I do not support moving forward with the event barn. Okay? Thank you. Anyone else for public comment? Okay. Did everyone get a chance to read the correspondence from both Dee and from Director John DeBozo? Any questions on it? I will indicate my support for Dee's position on the event barn survey for the record. Moving on to public hearing. The legal notice of tonight's public hearing was published
Please state the time we're opening the public hearing.
I haven't opened it yet. So the legal notice was published at 3/14 of 2019 in the Elk Rapids News and 3/17/2019 for the Traverse City Record Eagle. So we will now open the first public hearing at 7:13. And this is for the Fire Special Assessment District. And that begins on page 20 of the packet, according to my notation. Everybody find that? I'd like to remind everyone here to visiting this evening to sign in on the sheet for our budget public hearing. The property tax millage rate proposed to be levied to support the proposed fire special assessment district budget is $1 million. The fire fund proposed revenues are $205,300 and proposed expenditures are $227,065. This will leave an operational deficit budget of approximately $21,765. There were no written comments received on the Fire Special Assessment District budget. Is there anyone present who wishes to comment on this budget? Anyone at all? Okay. We will close the Fire Special Assessment District budget discussion, public hearing at 7:15 p.m. The next public hearing we'll move into is the ambulance millage budget. And we will open this public hearing at 7:16 p.m. Again, I'd like to remind everyone here to sign in if you're here to discuss budget with us. Legal notice was printed in the Traverse City Record Eagle on March 17th, 2019, and in the Elk Rapids News on March 14th, 2019. The property tax millage rate to be levied to support the proposed ambulance millage budget is 1.4915 cents, as reduced by the Headley Act. Overall proposed revenues for this budget are $377,650. Proposed expenditures for this budget are $357,675, leaving a net gain to the fund of approximately $19,975. There were no written comments received on the ambulance millage. Is there anyone here who wishes to comment on this budget? Anyone at all?
You're just saying the ambulance, what did you just say, I'm sorry?
Yeah,
The
just
ambulance budget? Okay.
Hearing no comments, we will close this particular budget at 7:18 p.m. We will open up the general fund budget along with all other remaining township budgets at 7:19 p.m. Again, reminding those here to discuss budget line items with us, please sign in at your earliest convenience. The legal notice of the budget public hearing was published in the Traverse City Record Eagle March 17, 2019, and in the Elk Rapids News on March 14, 2019. The property tax millage rate proposed to be levied to support the proposed general fund budget and all other township budgets is 0.5985 mils, as reduced by Headley. The general fund proposed revenues are $503,950. Proposed expenditures for the same fiscal year are $711,046, leaving an operational deficit of $207,096. There were no written comments received on the general fund budget. Is there anyone here who wishes to comment on the general fund budget?
So I gotta say my name again?
Please.
Heidi Bonney, 8371 Winnie Lane, Williamsburg, Michigan. Okay, we have a public improvement fund. Is this new? Oh, you can't talk to me?
I'm sorry, I was making notes. I was
That's all right,
listening.
I'm
I was
sorry.
listening.
We have a public improvement fund, is that something new?
Or do you wish to answer?
No. So,
Or do you wish to answer? I heard from one member.
It's not really our time to speak, it's their time to talk.
okay, well, that's all right. Just put it on public record that we took $50-some thousand out of the road fund and put it in a public improvement fund. And I wanna know what we're improving, because it doesn't say. So whoever decided to do that, please inform the public of what we're doing with it. Thank you.
Ron Pop, 6237 Oakview Drive. I think that the board's action to remove funding from the road repair and replacement fund is only going to serve a longer delay in replacing or repairing the roads that are in need of assistance. I'm deeply saddened that this took place, and I believe speaks highly to how the board operates as a group of four. Thank you. Any other public comment for general fund?
Ron Backey, 6987 Cook Road. I guess I just would like to make it public record that during the meetings, I did recommend that we leave the $50,000 into the road fund, because my thoughts were that in Whitewater Township, with the township board, I think that nothing could be more important than the safety and improvement of our roads. And I heard last night about how important it was to bank money for parks and recreation. I think a comment was, we have the parks, we need to take care of them. We have the roads, we need to take care of them.
Another fund, road fund, if you will. This one covers just our grinding of the gravel roads we have here in the township.
And streetlights.
Thank you, and streetlights, yep. You know, that's something we don't often think about, who pays for the streetlights? But yep, here it is. This is the fund where it's done. Total revenue for this particular fund is $16,905. Estimated expenditures for the same fiscal year are $22,000, leaving an operational deficit of approximately $5,095. There were no written comments received on the road fund budget. Is there anyone here that wishes to speak to this budget? Next fund is 204, Road Repair and Replacement Fund. Proposed revenues for this fund are $50,150. Proposed expenditures are $118,000. I believe this is a mistake.
I hope
I believe that it is a leftover from last year's estimate for Park Road. Board. To my knowledge, we have no cooperative efforts with Grand Traverse County Road Commission
Wasn't
for
that your number
2019.
that you submitted? I'm sorry.
I mean, we can leave it in there if something comes up, but.
Well, I'm just looking to see whether it's something you gave to us. We didn't discuss that number that I remember.
Well, we
I
certainly
think we-
discussed the revenue side of things.
In your budget, you have proposed in line item 935, $100,000 for road repairs and $18,000 in contingency.
Okay,
We did not touch those numbers.
well, there are no road projects scheduled to my knowledge, and I think our representative from the road commission indicated that there were no special projects planned in 2019, so.
You want to change this to 0?
Well, I'm concerned that if we do change it to 0, then there would be absolutely no way to fund any type of road repair, even if we took it on ourselves, but we'll do what the board wishes to do.
Oh, I said we leave it in there. Let's see what the problem is, see what the issue is.
Okay.
We can always amend it later.
You can amend your budget to add it back in if you want.
Or you
Yep,
can
I just
leave it
want
out
to
if you
make
want.
it clear that I have nothing planned with the road commission as far as a cooperative project for this year. So,
Well, something might come up.
all right, so
No,
then
we
we'll
should
leave
just
the
leave it in.
proposed expenditures at $118,000 as unallocated. Is that board consensus?
Yes.
Well, there were no written comments received on this road repair replacement fund budget. Is there anyone here that wishes to comment on the road repair budget replacement fund? I have already made my comments under the general fund. The park fund proposed revenues for the 2019-2020 budget are estimated at $136,800. Proposed expenditures for the same budget and same fiscal year are $220,700, leaving an operational deficit of approximately $83,900. There were no written comments received on the park fund budget. Is there anyone present who wishes to comment? For board discussion, I am recommending that we set a minimum threshold for funds like this. And this might even include the recreation fund, the road fund, the road repair replacement fund. But because the park uses some of these funds as operational items, do we ever see their fund going to 0? Probably not. I think it would be good accounting practice to set a minimum amount of savings, if you will, so the park can operate. Any thoughts?
I've not seen that in any recommended budget practices. I don't think we need to do that. Even with that deficit, operational deficit, there's still, what, over $100,000 in the park fund?
About 100,000.
I don't see the purpose for doing it myself. And then what, are you saying that that money could never be spent? If you're saying that, in all the budgeting, information I've ever read, I've never heard of such a thing.
No, the minimum threshold is set just for operational uses. So for example, we've discussed potentially expanding the park, okay? How much money do we have available to expand the park? And so, do we have all 188,000 in the fund to expand the park? That's probably not a good idea to spend all of our money. So that's where the minimum threshold comes in at. But look it up. So back to.
Is that maybe something that we should discuss later, or on a, like an agenda item, and bring some information educational wise to the rest
Well,
of the
it
board?
may be in a policy and procedure during budget processes. Yeah, it could be. It could be. With park, because we have potentially a lot of projects planned, we'll need to know how much money we want to set aside. So the discussion can come up there as well.
The park has never spent the, if you look, the park has always spent way less than what they've projected to spend. Those items are in the budget, so that if we get the opportunity to do those things, we can do them.
Sure.
So,
So no written comments received on the park fund. Is there anyone here that wishes to comment?
Hi, Tom, 371 Winnie Lane, Williamsburg, Michigan. Okay, I looked at the park proposal and everything, and now I see we're at a negative. Don't you think we should do something about Park Road before we make all the improvements in the park, so that maybe people want to bring their expensive boats down a dirt road? I mean, something to think about, but we're in the negative.
Any other comments tonight on park fund? Recreation fund, proposed revenues are $30,075. With proposed expenditures of $82,100. Leaving a net deficit of $52,025. There are no written comments on this particular fund budget. Is there anyone here that wishes to comment? Next fund for discussion is the ambulance replacement fund. Since we no longer operate a township-owned ambulance service, this fund has really become unused in the last few years. And so while it's probably not a great practice to have $0 balances in any particular fund, that's kind of the reason it's still here, is it's a throwback to when we did operate our own ambulance service and had to plan for asset replacement. Okay? So the estimated revenue for this particular fund is 0, and the estimated expenditures for this fund are 0 as well. We received no written comments on this particular budget item. Is there anyone present wishing to speak? Next item is Public Improvement Fund. Proposed revenues are $50,000 and expenditures are 0. There's no written comments received on this particular line item. Is there anyone present wishing to speak? Moving on to fire cap improvement. What page is that on? Paul? There it is. So we have an estimated revenue of $223,551.
$351.
According to the budget document on page 38, the number is 223,551.
Okay, no, it's wrong on this paper.
Yeah, it's supposed to be 223,351. It's correct in the budget document. It's incorrect on the projected change in fund balance document. Oh, no, wait a minute, it
Say
is
that
correct
again?
on there. Okay, what document are you seeing that's incorrect?
This one, the budget public hearing format sheet.
Oh, format, oh, that's incorrect. Yeah, it should be, if you look on page 38 of the budget,
It's just
of the packet, let me put it that way.
Yeah.
It's 223,351. It's also 223,351 on the projected change in fund balance document. I think the first one it was wrong on, and then I corrected it. Yeah, the first projected change in fund balance document, it was 223,551, but then I prepared the modified with actual through column figures, projected change in fund balance, and I corrected on there to 223,351. It's 223,351 is what it should be. That's the exact amount of money we got from rural.
And why does the budget document on page 38 indicate 223,551?
I'm on page 33 and I'm seeing, oh, because there's $200 of interest. The transfer amount is 223,351, the transfer amount, but it does say yes, so it should say 223,551. I'm sorry, that was right on there, on this document. On the projected change in fund balance, it should say 223,551, and it does on the first one. I forgot about the $200 in interest. Yep, 223,551 is correct for proposed revenue.
Is the correct number. Is that
Yeah.
board consensus? Okay. Are there any questions from the public on what we just figured out? All right. So then the proposed expenditures are
are $270,000, leaving a deficit of $46,449. And I have a question on, I guess, the negative $414,205 number on page 38, listed under Fire Capital Improvement Fund grand totals. If we bring in 220.
That's the grand total of every single fund.
So that's general fund.
Those are the grand totals of the entire budget document from page 1 to here.
Okay,
It does not relate just to the fire capital improvement fund.
got it. There were no written comments received on the Fire Capital Improvement Fund. Is there anyone here wishing to speak? Anyone at all? We will close this section of the budget at 7:42 p.m. For discussion on the proposed budgets.
The one notation I would make is that in the fire fund, since we are planning to transfer that rural fire money out of the fire fund, we need to put that in the line item. We're showing it coming in the fire capital improvement fund, but we're not showing it going out of the fire fund. So if you look on
Page 20.
page 22 of the packet, line 999, transfers to other funds, that should say 223351. Because we're planning on transferring that money, that's all the money that we received from rural. It was deposited in the fire fund. The physical checks were deposited into the fire fund because we weren't sure what we were going to do with it. If you look 2 pages prior to that, on the first page of the fire fund, in the top approximate third of the page, on line item 674, rural fire dissolution funds, that's where those funds came into the fire fund. They were deposited in there. And now, in order to get them into the fire capital improvement fund, they need to be shown on the 999 transfers to other funds line.
And what was the number that you recommended?
223351. Same number that came in.
Without the interest, basically, right?
The interest hasn't accrued yet, that's
Okay,
interest we expect to receive.
sure. And then typically on this document, we would make a notation at the bottom of this fund where that transfer ended up.
Oh, do you mean you want me to put a little red note over here?
Well,
saying
that's what
to
you
fire
started doing
capital-
this year, and it was very helpful, I
Well,
thought.
I've done that other years, but to fire capital improvement fund, sure, we can do that very easily.
So do we have a bottom number then for the fire fund? With that change?
Well, It'll be 227065 plus 223351. I don't have my calculator with me. And I don't have my phone either, so somebody else might want to add that up.
Did you come up with a number, Todd?
I'm looking at it.
Okay.
So you're just saying the 223351
Mm-hmm.
plus the 21?
No, no, you would add it to the, you have to get it into that total expenditure line item, so you have to add 223351 and 227065. And that will be the total expenditures on the fund.
Oh, I'm sorry. My brain was going to the fund that it was going in.
Oh, sure.
450, 416.
Mm-hmm.
$450, $416? Yeah, that's what I came up with.
So here's my point. So currently, the last record I have, fire fund has about 452 in it. And we are going to transfer out, provided that the budget is relatively accurate, 450, 416. So to leave less than $2,000 in that fund.
No. We're not transferring 450, 416 out. We are only transferring the
That's
223,
true.
351, and the fire fund balance right now includes the 223,
Right.
351. That's where that money came in at.
And was parked, plus we'll be funding it another.
So that is the reason everybody agrees that we're going to, or has agreed in the past, that that needs to go to a capital expenditure. And we make large capital expenditures for the fire department out of the fire capital improvement fund.
Sure.
And I believe Captain said, or Chief said, that the purchase of that vehicle will be paid in 2 different fiscal years.
Yeah, and I think that's probably not a bad idea. A down payment this year, and I got a hard time believing that we're waiting 8-9 months for a Freightliner chassis, but apparently we are. Any other board discussion on the budget items?
Well, I would just mention that I went back to last year's minutes for our budget public hearing, and that's why I modified the projected change in fund balance document with the actual through column figures, because we agreed to do that last year. And because otherwise, things start getting very unrealistic on here.
Right.
We've gone to, we had some very unrealistic numbers up at the top, we started going to audited, amounts up there. That has increased the accuracy of this document. But then when you start getting down, oh, and there's a change on here, I'm sorry, there is a correction. The very last line, bolded line, should say projected fund balance 3/31/2020. Okay, so you got 17 way at the top, then you got 18, then you got 19, this one should be 20, I just didn't get it corrected. So,
Are
anyways.
those the documents that you sent out earlier today?
No, I'm not sure what day I gave you guys this document. It wasn't today.
I got them today at 3:42 in my email. Projected change in fund balances 2019-2020 with actual through figures.
I don't think I sent that out today. I'm not sure why you're not getting it till today, but I don't recall doing that today.
So
I
what
think I sent
number,
that out yesterday.
what number needs to change?
The very last bolded line that goes all the way across the document that says projected fund balance 3/31/2019, it should be 3/31/2020, because this budget goes through 2020.
So that's not a change we can make because of the PDF.
Oh, no, I'll make it
Can you just
before
forward
it's,
out new
I'll make
documents?
it when you get the adopted budget document, this will be changed. But my main reason for bringing up this document is because last year, we agreed that in that middle part of the document, which addresses the current fiscal year, instead of using the budgeted or the amended budget column, we would use the actual through column. And you can see I even put a date on it because the revenue is through 2/28 and the actual expenditures are through 3/15. Now, we've spent more money since then. Of course, we've done another accounts payable run and another payroll will post this Friday. And there will be some expenses that we pay in April that will be posted back to this fiscal year. But anyways, we agreed last year, the point is that we agreed last year that we would use actual through column figures in this document in the current fiscal year. And we can only have it as current as when this document is made, you know what I'm saying? So, anyways.
Everybody clear?
Yep.
We're gonna get a new document with new numbers. All right, unfinished business number 1, Miami Beach sewer system set property value / update.
Well, when Tom and John were here last month, we talked about a lot of things, but we also talked about setting property values, which are setting a value for the 1/4 acre parcel, the 5 acre parcel, and then all of the system components. Everything that moves the effluent from where it becomes not homeowner owned to where it disperses into the drain field. So, it looks like, I provided a lot of documentation that shows that the township did not pay anything for the system. It was all paid for by the Miami Beach property owners. So, the township doesn't have anything, doesn't have money into the system. It's very similar to the Orchard Shores sewer system down in Acme Township. What happened down there was that the township also did not have any money into that system. A developer came in, bought the property, found out that the lots, or that the property didn't perk, spent his dime to put the system in, basically gave it to the township, because at that time, there wasn't private ownership of sewer systems, now there is. That was settled some years ago, apparently. And then, so then the Orchard Shores Association had a lot of questions about how it was being managed and whatnot. Some things went on, some funds got commingled that shouldn't have been commingled. Thankfully, we don't have that situation here. But anyways, so Acme Township transferred that system back to the Orchard Shores Association with for $1 on the deed. And because here again, they didn't have anything into it. So I'm suggesting that we can set values of $1 each for the property, both pieces of property, $1 each, and then all of the system components. Now, do we have that all listed out? No, but it will be. I mean, you know, deeds have to be drawn up and all that type of thing. So, and I looked at, what did I look at here? Anyways, I looked at some other information, and certainly there's no question that we can transfer the property. There's no prohibition against that. Chris has already said that we can do that. And really the purpose of this is to make sure, because the Miami Beach Road Association representatives, John and Tom, are working very hard to find out all what costs are going to be involved for the Miami Beach Road Association to get ownership of the system in their name. So they want to get that all compiled so that they can present the entire transaction to their membership for a vote. And so obviously the members need to have that information so that they can make an informed decision.
So my comments will remain the same. Orchard Shores is a completely different project than what this is. And while I have no issue at returning what was provided to the township for the same dollar amounts, the two issues that I believe this board is not looking out for are, we've now somehow completed a joint application, which anybody hold a mechanical license or an electrical license, any type of license here in the state of Michigan on the board? Does anybody besides me? Okay. And then additionally, what happens if one of the components that's on the park, Lossy Road Park land, needs to be dug up and replaced? You do not have authority under this current agreement to do that. So you're doing yourselves a disfavor by trying to do this cheaply without getting the right documentation and easement in place. Now, I will say it does protect the township, because the future boards would not have to allow that excavation. The easement is specifically for motorized vehicle over the land, not under it or above it. So those are the two major differences right there. And I don't think that we can encumber the township for use of the Cook Road right-of-way, although this board has made their decision to complete that application. I think we'll find fault there. So, costs, $1, not a problem. Whatever it was given to us for. But the other two items still are up in the air and are likely the most costly items to get figured out. That's all I have to say.
But tonight we're deciding on the value, correct?
No, later on down here you will see that the easement is is part of this negotiation. And so the board needs to be aware that you are giving away easements to parkland. And I think it'll be unprecedented.
Okay, well, my response to that is that we, I believe the minutes reflect from 3/12 that we were only going to set values at this meeting, and that we were not gonna deal with the other two main issues that Tom brought up until the meeting on 4/9.
So I have it recorded. You know, I requested a recording from the township board of that meeting. I did not get it. So thankfully, I was prepared and recorded that meeting myself. And whether your minutes reflect that or not, that was not part of the discussion. And I'll be more than happy to play that video from beginning to end.
Well, I'm just checking the minutes here. I know I already have the other two matters on the agenda for 4/9, and my memo did not speak to either of those other matters.
But the documents that you placed in this packet do speak to the easement itself. And I'll locate the page.
But but what I'm saying is there's no recommended motion for those tonight. There's not a request to have those, let me just see here, what else do we have? Okay, yeah, I don't see that it's in the minutes exactly, but I do know that I believe I talked to Tom about that we wouldn't try to put all of these issues on this agenda tonight. So no, there isn't any request on that. And as far as, you know, this easement for Lossy Road, they've already been accessing Lossy Road Nature Trail for 20+ years, going down to the gate, accessing the property, the Grand Traverse County DPW has, and doing whatever they need to do out there. The easement that is drawn up will specifically give them motorized access just down to the gate and into the property, obviously, for anything they need to do for operation and maintenance of the system. If that means digging in the ground, that means digging in the ground. Obviously, we're not going to prohibit them from digging in the ground down there.
But do we really need to talk about that tonight?
No, we don't. It's,
Well,
Ron brought it up.
It's on page
so-
67.
Yeah, I know the
So-
documents are there, but
You know, you say that it's not part of this, but it says, MBRA requests approval that the value of each real estate parcel, property, and system mechanics properly be placed at $1 for purpose of bill of sale and deeds. MBR requests concurrence that the township board will approve the Lossy Trail easement for piping and service. The MBR requests concurrence that the township board will transfer the balance of the receiving fund. And I have no problem with that either. But encumbering, you make a valid point. DPW has been going across parkland for the last 20 years for the owner of the system, which has been Whitewater Township. So now the owner is someone else. And you would not give, if you would give someone easement across your land, then your property rights radar should be in full swing. Because you would not do that on your personal land.
I did. Gave consumers power the right to go across my land.
Well, okay, so that's a utility, understood.
This is, to me, this is a utility
Well, but it's a privately held utility,
that
So-
has been established for over 20 years.
only through township ordinance. So the new owners are new at it, and they don't have the authority to levy additional money to the tax bills.
All they have to do is petition the township for a special assessment, which is what they did before. And if they needed an influx of money, that's what they would have to resort to again.
If it's legal to do it for the second time on the same asset.
I'm pretty sure it is. Same thing
I'm not
with
so sure it
roads,
is.
same thing with roads.
So those are my concerns. The board's gonna do what they wanna do. The last and final concern is that we have never, as a board, transferred assets without legal opinion. And that's what you were proposing to do.
We've had a lot of legal opinion on this. I
You
know because I just looked at the bills that came through that has done nothing but talk about Miami Beach Road special assessment transfer.
It spoke about the transfer, but it never spoke about the perils of the transfer. Or advantages, just to be fair. So we do not have an opinion on the advantages and disadvantages.
See, I thought we did, Ron.
Nope.
If you look at the attorney's opinion from November 30th, I just happened to bring mine in here, I don't think I did not copy that for everybody. But Chris says on the first page, the issue with, well, we're not supposed to read from it. So let me attempt to paraphrase.
That's not
Okay.
a confidential opinion. That was an email to all the board members.
I'm talking about the November 30th, 2018 confidential legal opinion,
Okay.
attorney-client privilege.
But that's about the sale, not about the advantages or disadvantages.
Well,
Anyway, go
If
ahead.
I could just be allowed to
Sure.
finish. He talks about that, you know, the potential for future liability, okay, under the circumstances of, that he talked about in the Elkwood Shores opinion. He talks about that, you know, if you can maintain oversight and control by maintaining the system, in control of the system, okay? But I'm convinced that the Miami Beach Road Association has been extremely responsible with their management of the system over these 20-plus years, and the things that they have done on the homeowner side of the system, over and above what Grand Traverse County has done. And I'm confident that they are going to maintain it and operate it, and we're not gonna have any problems. Now, that said, the attorney is also going to write up indemnification language, and he talks about that in an email, which I don't think the board has gotten this yet, but this was on March 8th. This is an email from Chris Patterson on March 8th, talking about the initial assessment of issues and requirements. And we got this after the March 12th board packet went out, and I don't think it was ever forwarded to the board by either Ron or I. So that's why I copied it here. But under the transfer agreement provisions, one of the things that's going to happen is that Miami Beach Road Association is going to have to release us from liability for future problems and indemnify the township against future problems. So those things are all going to be handled in this transfer agreement that will be drawn up. So I'm confident that our attorney, who has got 2 pages here of these are the issues, I'm confident that our attorney and the Miami Beach Road Association attorney is going to be able to craft a document that is going to address all of the issues, the easement issues, all of that. Also, what would happen if, you know, the Miami Beach, you know, wanted to, if the Miami Beach Road Association wanted the township at some future point to do some kind of, you know, special assessment or something like that. I think all that is going to be taken care of. I think our attorney is very good, competent, and thorough. And once again, the only thing that my memo speaks to, which on page 40, is the motion that I put together. That's the only thing that I'm asking the board through this memo. I have a couple other issues to bring up, and I think John and Tom, we've had this as a standing agenda item. One of the reasons for that was to allow them to update us on anything they want to convey to the township when we can all hear it. And so, all of these other issues are going to be dealt with. The township is going to be held harmless from future liability. The road commission's gonna demand that too, but that's their deal with Miami Beach Road Association. We don't need to get involved in that. We don't need to get involved between the Miami Beach Road Association and the Grand Traverse County DPW. They've already talked to them, and we don't need to get involved between the Miami Beach Road Association and the DEQ. Those things have already been, John and Tom have done a very good job of following up on all those things. So I am confident that all of the issues are going to be addressed. And right now, we are just setting values on the 2 parcels of land and the value of the entire system, components and infrastructure, so that they know how much that's going to cost and can present their cost estimates, because they're gathering, you know, whatever the DEQ, whatever the county, whatever the road commission comes up with. This is an information gathering thing, and we can take another step tonight by setting these values, which it doesn't sound like there's any disagreement with, and just get that part done so that we can move forward.
So to be clear, the easement and the county road right-of-way are not part of this motion, independent of what Tom's March 14th document is requesting from the board. Is that correct? Yes or no?
My proposed motion says what it says. It's a motion to set the value of parcel 13-127-011-11 at $1, to set the value of parcel 13-127-030-10 at $1, and to set the value of the sewer system components / infrastructure at $1. And by that I mean all of the components that are not homeowner owned.
Right, which you have listed
That is-
out in one of the documents.
That's my only motion. My motion doesn't have anything to do with easements, right-of-ways, anything like that.
So you make a
That is
motion.
all going to be talked about again at some other meeting. I'm sorry.
So are you making a motion?
I'm proposing that motion. I'll make that motion if you'd like.
And I'll second that motion. I have no problem selling those items back. They were gifted to us for the same dollar amount. Motion made and seconded. Is there further discussion? Roll call when ready.
Bennett?
Yes.
Goss, yes. Hubble?
Yes.
Lawson?
Yes.
Howe?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I have a couple more things to bring up, but Miami Beach.
Okay.
I mean, this is an update. So, yes, so I do. So I provided the board also with an email that I sent to Chris Patterson on March 22nd. and I had a couple concerns, about this conference call that will eventually take place. And, I would just wanna make sure that everybody understands that John and Tom, the last page of my email is a document that I sent to Chris. It was in our board packet, I believe, in November. Probably not something that anybody paid a lot of attention to, but it is the president of the Miami Beach Road Association's letter. He dropped it off personally here to the township, delegating authority to handle, to represent the association regarding this matter to Tom Slopsema, Dave Van Dyke, and John Nolan. Now, we haven't seen Dave here, but, so on any conference call that takes place on this matter, at least one of those, if not two or all three of them, need to be present on that conference call. So I did advise Chris of that. Also, I think that it's a good idea that there be 2 township board members present on that conference call. And so I'm asking the board to agree that on any conference call that takes place regarding this system, that there be 2 board members. It doesn't necessarily have to be me. I'm sure Ron wants to be one of them. I'm not insisting that it be me, but I would like 2 board members. I think it would be wise, let's put it that way, to have 2 board members present on the conference call. And so I'm asking the board what they think about that.
And my recommendation is that it be Cheryl, because her and I have probably been involved with this since the beginning, most generally. So we might be considered
Most knowledgeable.
2 good candidates, let's put it that way.
You just need
So-
consensus.
I think so,
I'm okay with that.
yeah.
I'm okay with that.
Yes.
Mhm.
Consensus, there will be 2 township board members on any conference call related to the Miami Beach sewer system.
Yeah.
My last issue, before we hear from John, Tom, or both, is that Ron would like to have further research done by the attorney on the advantages and disadvantages of transferring the system. When I saw that, I looked back at that legal opinion, and I really, my personal opinion, I don't care what the board does on this. My personal opinion is that we know what those are, that as board members, especially for Paul and Della, that are the longest serving board members here, they know that we have to protect the township. It has to be done correctly. Every T has to be crossed, every I has to be dotted. And I'm not sure that we need to spend any more money at the attorney's office we know that private entities can own sewer systems. We know that. They've already done a lot of their due diligence on these other agencies' involvement. And to me, my personal opinion is we don't need to spend any more money on that, but I would like the board to make that decision.
And in defense of that request, from the 11:30 emails from Chris, which all board members got, you can look up at your email, he recommends that we do provide or go through that process. So once again, if the board chooses not to, that's up to you. I am recommending that we follow the attorney's recommendation, and we have that advantage and disadvantage list prepared.
Well, the way I read his email from the 21st is whether
This is
you
from
would.
11/30 of 2018.
Right,
That's
this is
where
from
he makes
March,
his recommendation.
this is from March 21st, 2019, so this is more recent. His last paragraph, we are certainly here to serve the township, so I would appreciate clarification on whether you would like further research as to the potential advantages and disadvantages of a transaction. He's not recommending it there, he's asking us what we want.
Because of Cheryl's email in contradiction to the advantage, disadvantage. He wants clarity. So you're not reading the email where he actually makes the recommendation.
My email that I just referenced was after that.
Agreed. Yep, totally agree. So everybody should have received the email on 11/30,
The opinion
but it's
on 11/3.
it's in his email body, not in his opinion. And so that's, I'll see if I can pull it up here. Find the archive. So it looks like I have it here. Almost there. So on 11/30 at 5:46 p.m., he sent the Miami Beach Sewer opinion, which Cheryl quoted from. The email body attached to that legal opinion begins as Ron and Cheryl. Attached is the legal opinion regarding the sale of Miami Beach system. As I noted in the opinion, the township may want to verify all of the paperwork has been completed for a potential sale. Otherwise, I would recommend that you also consider other advantages and disadvantages of selling the system, which were outside of the purview of our opinion. These include who has best expertise to manage, who is in best position to impose rates, and may not approve of, and who is best able to consider long-range planning and ensure assets maintenance is completed and capital improvements are done when deemed necessary. New technology, imposition, and requirements by state and federal agencies. If you have additional areas that you would like to cover, please let me know. So that was in his body. And I think that, again, I don't know if that recommendation ever made it to the board level.
I don't have a copy of my email on that date.
No. So, you know, it should have come with the legal opinion, and so
But
that's
that wasn't dispersed in a board package.
to all board members, right? Because by that time, we had learned that, you know, legal opinions aren't supposed to be released for general public use like we had been doing. So, and that's my recommendation, is that we follow Chris Patterson's recommendation. But that's up to the board. when we talk about something being outside of the purview of the opinion, that pretty much indicates to me that they have something else to say, but was not opined on due to maybe scope of questions, who knows? I can't answer for this.
Well, as you were reading through the list of things that he was elaborating on, it sounded to me like we really do have a handle on most of those things. So,
What's the board's pleasure? Get the legal opinion or not? I'll make a motion to hire Chris Patterson to generate his legal opinion as recommended 11/30/2019 for the advantages and disadvantages. I'm sorry, I meant 18. The advantages and disadvantages of selling the Miami Beach sewer system. Motion is made, is there a second? Okay, we'll consider it a dead issue. Anything else to update?
just anything Tom and John did.
I got a brief update if I could. Tom Slopsma, 9693 Miami Beach Road. And thanks for your consideration there on the parcel values and the infrastructure value in terms of a potential transfer. So I wanted to update the board on our request to the County Road Commission that we submitted on 3/13/2019. And this might read a little odd. It was odd to me at first that the form in the first place and then who the applicant and contractor people are. But we were told to do this by Ron Roloff, and John had spoke to Ron. That was Ron's direction, use this form. And then John and I both spoke with Mark McKellar, and he also said use this form. So I do want to clarify to the board what our request to the Road Commission was. I'll read it here. Miami Beach Road Association requests that the Road Commission determine right of use requirements, permit costs, and fees associated with the section of the forest main buried in the public right-of-way on Cook Road. So this was not requesting a permit. This is requesting the Road Commission to tell us what all we need to do and then how to apply for permit and the fees. So this was a request from them to look at it. And we haven't heard back yet from them. Now that the snow is off the ground, we can see the clean up manhole covers. That gives us an opportunity to measure accurately how far off the pavement the pipe is buried, as well as how deep the pipe is buried. That was other data that the Road Commission wanted. So we'll get that over the next day or two. So we'll follow up with the Road Commission by the end of the week on the status of our request. Again, the status of the request for the Road Commission's right to use requirements and permitting costs and fees and that sort of thing. So that's where we're at this point. Waiting for the Road Commission to get back with us.
Thank you.
Thanks.
John?
I actually don't have anything this week.
Excellent.
That was too fast, Ron.
Just wrong day.
Thank you.
And so if I could just clarify that we have talked about for the 4-9 agenda, dealing with the other requests in your letter dated March 14th, which has to do with the easement and the receiving fund. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah. Yep, and we spoke a couple times about, that would occur on the 9th of April. Yeah.
So,
Right.
I mean, before I'm prepared to vote, I want to see the agreement that releases us from liability. So,
Okay,
you
and
know,
that's fair,
I
sure.
mean, wouldn't you think that's a reasonable request? You know, we're not going to vote on something that's pie in the sky, in my opinion. But that's just my opinion. Lori, what's your thought?
Well, everything needs to be in order across the board, so it's a process, we have to work through it.
So does that mean that
Yes,
the indemnification,
all that,
okay,
all the way across, all the permits, everything needs to be in
Okay.
order.
and so whether or not that gets done by April 9, I guess, who is going to do that?
Okay, I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, when you say agreement, what agreement are you referring to?
Well, before I'm willing to even consider encumbering township land, we have to have the agreement that's going to encumber it in front of us.
So the transfer agreement.
Or a
provision.
draft agreement?
Sure, draft, yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're gonna wanna make sure that we're not, again, the concern here is, all right, and no offense, but what happens if you decide to leave $5,000 in your maintenance fund? Let's just pick a number, you can pick any number you want. And the very first thing that goes wrong is more than $5,000 in cost. How do you cover that? So that's a default. And according to my waters, then the liability comes back to us.
Well, part of the transfer agreement provisions that Chris wrote up was the release of liability and the indemnification. He's got,
Those are the
right,
requirements.
yeah, there's quite a,
But we haven't seen the document that does that.
right, but he's already listed it out,
So
so he's aware of it.
is that something Miami Beach is going to supply to us? I think that it's their request, and therefore they supply it to us.
Well, if I can just interject here. The thing that I'm proposing that we can discuss on 4-9 is the easement. Okay? And I'm not talking about, yes, this agreement, as I mentioned earlier, all of the legal documents have to be drawn up. If you look at Chris's email of Friday, March 8th, the one I gave everybody a copy of, under easements, he's talking about the Lossy Road Nature Trail, the Cook Road, and he mentions easements over private property. I didn't understand there were any easements over private property.
That's all
I
on
can
their
explain
side.
that. Yeah, it is
That's
correct.
all on the
Your side.
downstream side of the shut-off valves.
Okay.
Correct.
And really
Okay.
isn't part of this discussion because it's yours already.
Right.
Right.
So,
Okay, so we don't need to worry about that. But this whole agreement thing, Chris doesn't even address that till later about what the transfer agreement provisions are going to say. I'm talking about making a decision on, Chris says, the township will need to grant the MDRA an easement for motorized access via the Lossy Road Nature Trail to the 5-acre parcel. Okay? So, that's something we will have to do. And then Cook Road. The township will need to transfer its use of the Cook Road right-of-way to the MDRA. I'm not talking about the agreement yet. We're not to the agreement yet. We can be dealing with some of these other issues. So are you saying, and this is what Tom is asking for, on his page 67 in the packet, easement, allow access for motorized service vehicles along the first 800 feet of Lossy Trail, east from Cook Road, and allow continued use of existing approximate 800 feet of buried 3-inch force main pipe and air release valve on Lossy Trail. So that's what we're talking about, is the easement part of this, not the whole agreement. That's what I was suggesting that we would discuss further on 4-9.
The agreement has the indemnification in it. And that's the part that is important to, I think, the rest of the taxpayer. Because again, going back to whatever dollar amount you guys decide to set aside, currently we have $80,000, right? That's what has been set aside. But if you decide a different value, that's gonna be completely up to you. You could assign $2 to set aside for maintenance repair. Not that you would, that's probably not a responsible thing to do. But are you gonna keep the 80 grand? Probably not either. And so, what happens if the first thing that breaks exceeds the amount of money you have set aside?
But the terms of the easements are recorded all the time down at the Register of Deeds office. The easement, the transfer agreement, yes, is going to deal with all of the things that you just talked about. The easement, an easement is just a right to use something. That's all it is. And,
Actually, it's more than that.
well, if I can finish, an easement is a right to use, a right of access. I am not suggesting that we are going to do anything but get the township fully protected from any and all eventualities here. But what I'm saying is the easement is one of the documents that is going to have to be drawn up, the transfer agreement, deeds, blah, blah, blah. They're gonna have all their own documents with these other 3 agencies that we're not gonna be any part of.
So then let's just
Okay.
do the agreement first and the easement second. What's wrong with just mixing up the order of it? If it gets us to the ultimate end, which is the transfer of sale, I've got no problem with this moving through, provided that we provide protection to the taxpayer. And so we have no control, no say over what you guys do in the future to it. But again, if a default occurs of any type, it's gonna come back to us.
Well, couldn't we prepare the easement so it's ready for the time the agreement is done?
Sure.
I mean, isn't that how you do it when you're closing on property?
No,
All your paperwork gets done, and at the time of the closing, it's all there,
well,
right?
this is not a typical transaction.
But it's very similar, and I understand your concerns, but we did have a condition assessment done.
Chris Patterson did point out that he hadn't seen anything like this run across him in like 80 years of experience.
Chris didn't have 80 years of experience.
No,
Well,
he doesn't.
combined.
Sure, but there's
Thank
private sewer systems
That's
all
not
over the
engaged.
state, and just because, and maybe you're not aware, in the document where Chris stated that, he also stated, he gave 3 or 4 other examples of things they have involved in, have been involved in, involving sewer systems that are not this exact scenario, but this exact scenario can be dealt with. I'm confident their office can deal with it. It's been done in many other places, and this is not that unusual of a transaction.
My
Actually-
point was,
Right.
is that condition assessment has told us that this system should last for 50 years. They've had it for 20. And it lists out all the things in a scheduled manner that are going to have to be replaced. If they're replaced during the scheduled time frame that they're supposed to be replaced, the $80,000 that they have sitting in their bank right now should more than cover that.
That's only if they maintain it. We
Well,
have no requirement for them to maintain it.
but isn't that a part of something you could put in the agreement, Ron?
But we have to have the agreement, and that's my point. So
Well-
instead of working on the easement, instead of sneaking up on this thing, and that's really what we're trying to do, we're trying to do the cheap parts first and the expensive part last, but yet they want to know how much it's gonna cost. And I'm just saying, if you want to know how much it costs, you guys have an attorney that sits on the board. He was just elected here in July. Have him draw up the agreement. How much more can free be? Actually, how much less can free be?
Well, I
Well,
think,
Hold on. And so, in Chris's email from 3/9, he indicates that, I'm sure the various hybrids of all three above is not, to say the transfer from the public to the private do not occur. And so he is saying, I'm sure that it does somewhere, but he is not indicating at all that this is a common practice. He is not indicating that at all. And everybody got that email. Well, I take that back, not everybody. John and Tom, Becky, you got it, and I got
You
it.
know, I hear a lot of ifs, and I wonder, and, you know, this will be taken care of. But I have heard also, too, that legal counsel has said that they have an opinion. And their opinion has positives, and it has negatives. And I'm just wondering if those positive and negative opinions would just answer everything for us. I mean, and I think the public, they've heard that there were positive and negative opinions.
Thank you.
Okay,
Maybe
yeah,
the public-
point of order.
yeah.
Thank you.
I'm a little disturbed that we're just allowing people from the public.
And that's why I tried to stop it. I indicated to Cheryl that we shouldn't be debating with the public. I get it.
And
And
also, the supervisor's office is represented here.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
they're represented.
But if the public does have a question, please raise your hand. Tom and John, same thing. If you guys have a question about what we're talking about or discussing, raise your hand, and I'll poll the board to see if we want to take questions. Okay? So that's the same for both sides.
And I would just say, I guess as far as dealing with this easement thing, I think the board understands that part of this entire transaction is an easement down Lossy Road Nature Trail by a service vehicle, by a motorized vehicle, to access the infrastructure of the Miami Beach sewer system for whatever it takes for operation and maintenance. And I'm going to grant that access. I'm going to vote for that. I don't know what the rest of the board is going to do. I agree that we don't maybe need that easement document right now. I think maybe what Tom and John are looking for is some assurance that it is going to happen. I believe that that's what they're looking for.
And I think we've got that concurrence here tonight. And I'm just looking out for the rest of the public, that's it. And so, I have experience in excavation, and I can tell you that it's gonna be a different easement, and your legal counsel will tell you the same. So, if you ever need to dig it up, we wanna make sure that you can dig it up. And the township is just gonna be concerned about that it's repaired to like condition. So we don't have, God forbid, trenches left open or just let your mind wander. We just want to make sure that it's returned to its like condition. And that should be something very simple that can be covered. So, board, what's your thought?
About
Agreement. Just have their attorney forward an agreement, and that covers those things. And
That covers what things? Everything on Chris's list of transfer agreement provisions?
well, specifically the indemnification.
Well-
But we could also include the easement in that too. Why not just generate the documents? If we're gonna move forward with a sale, and I see no reason not to, we're gonna have to generate them one time or another. Let's quit putting this on our agenda time after time after time. I mean, first of all, they asked to be on one agenda, now they're on both. I mean,
No, I asked for it to be just like the renovation addition project over at the building. Once that got underway, I asked for that, or even before that, I asked for that to be on both meeting agendas of the month because there was always gonna be some new information every 2 weeks. Now, we're going to one meeting a month, so that's only gonna happen one meeting a month now. I believe the board asked for the transfer agreement, what, a couple of months ago? We said, let's get the transfer agreement. I don't know if that was ever relayed to Chris Patterson or not.
So I'm not
We've
sure,
been waiting for the transfer agreement. We've been waiting for that.
so I'm not sure what we're debating here. If we all agree we want to move forward with this, then let's just do it.
Yep.
and it shouldn't be our responsibility to generate the document. It's their request and their cost.
No, I don't agree with that. We consulted our attorney. If you want everything typed up just so to protect the township, our attorney needs to do it because he's the one that's working for the township.
No, our attorney needs to review what they submit.
No, they can't be expected.
I'm not gonna spend taxpayer money to generate something
We're not
that-
spending taxpayer
Yes, we
money,
are.
we're spending, well, some taxpayer money, and also, you need to remember, these people pay taxes. They're entitled to services from the township. And so, over and above everything they've paid for the Miami Beach sewer system, they pay high taxes because they live on the water. And they're entitled to services from the township, okay, and we don't need to be billing them. They've already paid for copies and digitizing things and stuff like that. It's been the plan all along, and that's why we sought this legal opinion. It's been the plan all along that the township attorney would know all of the issues that need to be dealt with. We need to get a draft transfer agreement from Chris, at which point it will be shared with the Miami Beach Road Association. They will take it to their attorney, and then working back and forth, we will be able to come up with the final document. But it's been assumed all along, and I think it's the business that the township, if we're gonna protect the township, they're not gonna put everything in it probably that would protect the township. If you want everything in it that's gonna protect the township attorney needs to draw it up. And I'm gonna make a motion
We have
that,
an ordinance that says we're not to expend township funds. Now, if we wanna pay for it out of the receiving fund, that's fine with me. We paid for the first, request, in its entirety, because I believe we did make that request. But from this point forward, it's their request to us. So just like when they originally came to us for the bond, they paid all of the fees. And that's the way it has to be according to the ordinance. And again, the legal opinion, I think, will bear that burden to them. And I'm not going to assume anything.
Abraham, John had his hand up earlier.
Okay, so do we want to throw out for questions? John?
John Owen, 9933 Miami Beach Road. As mentioned by Cheryl earlier, Tom and I have been delegated the authority from the association to represent Miami Beach Road Association. Just recently, I've also been appointed to the board of the Road Association, for your information.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm not sure about it.
Uh-huh.
The one item you basically had covered back in December, I was gonna mention, the board did pass a motion, which Ron, I think you made, for a transfer agreement to be done. And it was unanimously passed by the board, so, it did come out during your discussions about that, and, right now our interest is how do we proceed to keep moving forward on this so that we don't drag this out every month, continue that, utilizing your time and resources, so, we're very willing, either draft it ourselves and submit it, or for the township. You know, to me, the township, from a standpoint of identifying their issues that, they want in there, seems most efficient. However, we're more than willing to engage our legal to draft, you know, a document to submit it to the board also, you know, from that standpoint. So, as long
Does
as.
that mean pay?
Well, I would propose splitting it, but, if it means paying it, you know, in the interest of getting it done, we'll, you know, we're at a disadvantage. We can't control what Chris is asked to do in his performance of what he's doing. If he racks up 100 hours on this, I don't think we should actually be obligated for the payment, because this thing should be a boilerplate document that's on the shelf. We could take 1 hour and get this done.
To transfer use of public land to a private entity is something that's on the shelf?
One thing just to mention too, earlier, this drain field that was first installed was one of the first things 20 years ago, you know, so, you know, us transferring this is new to everybody also, so, but, you know, from that standpoint, but I've recently tried to do a lot of research, and there's a lot of stuff out there by Chris's firm that's out on the web of guidance and advice and that, and, you know, I would not think that we're recreating a wheel here.
Okay.
You know, in my opinion, you know, but
So
my biggest
come up
issue,
with a dollar amount that, you know, you're comfortable of spending.
we'll contribute $1,200.
All right. I'm good with that. At least we can show that we don't have taxpayer money going out. And we can document it.
And just
Towards the cost of the transfer agreement, is that
towards
what
the
you're
cost
saying?
of- yes, and I believe we've split one document, one invoice has been split.
No, we paid for it all.
No, there's two,
No.
Ron, that
Since then,
there was one that we requested the board because they elected to get the opine from Chris, which the board agreed to pay in full. There was a second one, I believe, dated January, that ended up being split between the two, the township and the association,
Yes.
Okay.
you know, so February, I have no idea what may be down the road, but, you know, but from that standpoint.
I think that provides us ultimate protection if you guys are good with that. A verbal response records better than, or a,
Yes, we actually have a straw man of an agreement, but,
if you got the bones of it, I think that would save us money from, like John says, recreating a wheel. We ship it off to Chris and let him do the red lines that he does, and away we go.
okay, yes.
Well-
And where we're lacking is the indemnification. The total indemnification wording that you would be looking for to protect all the taxpayers.
And I don't even know what that is, you know, to be honest with you. So, I mean, that'll probably be on us, 100%, the township. So, I see that we have to protect the people, so the indemnification clause can be separated out of Chris's bill, and we'll take care of that.
You
Is that
know, look for
reasonable?
something mutual, you know, that, you know, from, we understand the indemnification request and in concept, do not have issue
Right.
with proposing that to our membership. You know, all along in the past 20 years, there's been very few requirements for repairs or added costs. When the gas line did come through, caused some maintenance issues, which we were charged and we paid for, that similar that you don't plan for, and the membership ended up paying for it, so.
which I think should have been billed back to Miller, but, you know, that's,
I agree.
yeah, I mean, you know, it was, I also get Miller's point of view that, you know, the locating device was some 4 or 5 feet away, so, the best practices.
Just, I don't mean to say, it was approximately 2 feet, it happened in front of Tom's house, so he was actually in the hole.
It got dirty, did you?
Yes, I do.
That's the only reason I bring that up was
Okay.
Tom was got to deal with it.
All right, so anything else on this item?
Well, I would just mention that everybody can go back and look at the minutes of December 11th, 2018. We had quite a discussion on the whole Miami Beach thing. And there was a motion, this was by Ron Pop, to have Chris generate the transfer agreement documents as he has written in his instructions between Whitewater Township and Miami Beach Road Association. And Bennett had already seconded that motion. I was rereading it there. And on voice vote, all those present voted in favor, none opposed, Lloyd was absent. That motion carried. So that was back on December. It's March 26th, and I'm not sure where the communication got lost to have Chris generate the transfer agreement, but that needs to be conveyed to him immediately so that he can get busy on that. We've already handled this.
But they're gonna supply their copy of it, and so you get me that in the morning, and I'll forward it right to Chris.
You want me to get it to you?
Yep.
Okay,
And please include me on the email.
yes.
Thank you.
You know, one more concern for you guys. This has gotta be, all the stuff to get on the next agenda has gotta be in, at what time?
Well, we need to finalize the agenda in 2 days for the 4-9 meeting.
So, lawyers, we all know how they work.
I don't
You might have to go to the
anticipate,
next one.
And
Agreement
Paul,
by then.
there's no question, Chris is not gonna have the
No.
transfer
I just
agreement
want to know
done
if
for
they
the
were aware of
4-9
that.
meeting.
yeah.
No, even if he had it in his
I didn't
hand
want
right
you to be
now.
disappointed thinking we're gonna have it on next month's meeting.
No.
No problem.
Yeah, that's probably gonna be more like May.
Did I understand you correctly, we need to finalize the April agenda in 2 days?
That's 8 business days before the meeting.
Yeah, it's in the first week of April.
You got 8 business days before the,
Comes up in a hurry, comes up in a hurry. All right, are we done?
with all the supporting documents, because I
Are we
am
done?
going to be out of the office some of next week, and the agenda, the packet will be going out Friday.
All right. Event barn survey.
So it looks like Lindsay took into consideration the concern about using historic, the word historic.
So, yeah, I've watched the videotape and rewatched it, and I have lots of concerns about fact-checking on lots of items. Well, I'm not gonna go into that at this point, but in the proposed language, and I'm referring kind of back to D's, I'm sorry, the pronunciation of his last
Probaker.
name. What is it?
Probaker.
Probaker. He's really looking to identify a scope. And I guess if we had to move forward with this, I think the scope is a good idea. And so, are we actually talking about any barn, any structure? Or are we talking about those that exist currently? So, if I was a venue promoter, can I move a barn in? Can I build a barn? I don't think that's right. But if it was existing, then it also fills all of those facts, all of those items about helping the farmer, making sure that they've got some additional income, doing all those things. It does that. It helps the Sandy Wrens. It helps whomever. But if we're actually talking about being able to move any barn, any structure, as long as it was deemed historic by someone, into the township and create a commercial business, and I understand there's no argument that this is considered a commercial business, but understand that agricultural land, and I'm gonna say that at least 35% of agricultural land is actually used as residential. And so it goes beyond zoning. And I think where we're gonna have trouble is when we mix the commercial next to the residential uses. If Paul wants to put a barn out in the middle of his hay field, he had hay. He doesn't have hay, but if he had hay, and if he had a barn in the middle of the hay field and wants to hold events in it, then so be it.
You know, I'm okay with taking that historical out of that first paragraph, as she's suggesting, because there was a,
I'm saying existing, add the word existing, is what I'm saying. That's the important part, and that gives us a definition of scope. So, if there isn't a barn there now, we don't anticipate a commercial entity moving in. And we would have no expectation of that. Now, Lindsay did comment that through special use and use variant, an event barn could move into just about any zoning district. But it would have to comply with the master plan. And Lloyd, it's been a long time since we went through the master plan, but I don't think the master plan allows commercial and residential next to one another. Cheryl has even said, we would never put a commercial entity in a residential zone. And we shouldn't.
It's a no-brainer.
Yep. But what happens if that commercial entity goes into the agriculture and right next door is the residential use?
so if we were to put your suggestion in, it really doesn't mean anything, because this is a survey, it's not an ordinance. Where that would come in would be in the ordinance.
No.
Why
Because-
wouldn't it?
Because this provides scope to people. So they're gonna read this and say, hey, this barn exists, so it could actually happen next door to me.
Okay, but what happens if somebody builds a barn that looks like a traditional barn in the middle of nowhere, and in 30 years, Ron, they decide they wanna turn it into some kind of an event barn? You're saying that would never be allowed, because it isn't existing today? Is that what you're saying?
Because it's, yes, that is precisely what I'm saying.
So what if a barn burns down and somebody wants to rebuild it?
You're allowed to do that. The zoning ordinance does not, even if it's a non-conforming, the zoning ordinance does not stop you from doing that. By law, I think you're allowed to do that, by statute.
I think the, Lindsay's proposed, rewording for the first paragraph is good. She says, she proposes that we say, over the past months, there has been much discussion on the topic of event barns. Typically, event barns are agricultural barn structures, and Mr. Cherwinski had an objection to the word typically. I'm fine with taking the word typically out and saying event barns are agricultural barn structures which are transformed to provide a new venue for weddings, parties, or similar events. Townships need to be aware of how these facilities may impact their communities. We are interested to know what township residents and property owners think regarding these types of facilities, Whitewater Township is attempting to find a balance between the rights of barn owners and the interests of the community. So, to me, we take the word typically out. Now, you wanna say event barns are existing agricultural barn structures which are transformed.
It leads me to believe the word transformed, the right of barn owners, all leads me to believe that those things exist on the land today. It's merely a point of clarity.
Okay, so it's already exists in there because it say which are transformed.
But it
Okay,
doesn't
so
say
you're
existing.
inferring that they exist.
So you have structure.
It's referring, you're assuming they are transformed because they exist. But transformed could be moved.
What do you do about the person that buys a farm and wants to do this and can move a historic barn? Just like they did in Acme.
Yeah,
That's where I disagree with you on that.
So what they did in Acme though is that's on the old campground.
No,
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 it's,
No.
it's that house farther back.
it's all the way to the
On
end
that
of,
dirt road.
it's all,
But isn't the campground right next door?
no,
No,
there's no campground.
it's
It's
a
all
little,
developed
it's farther down
behind them to the west,
to the east. The campground's farther down the road to the east.
on
Bracken.
Don't you
Bracken
take,
Road.
don't you take Lautner almost straight across?
Once Lawton Road hits
Yeah.
whatever I call it Holly Road, it's,
Exactly.
Right.
and then you
Bartlett.
cross it, it turns to gravel, all the way across, it's running right behind
There used
Village
to be
Woods
a big
Farm.
house up there.
There's still,
There's still,
yeah.
you don't even see the barn from the road.
no.
It's way back.
Well, it's still,
They also, according to Lindsay, checked into all this, they are only allowed to have 12 events a year.
Right.
They don't have, you have to bring in your own tables and chairs even. It's just basically somebody renting a covered structure, you know?
It's regulated.
It's very tightly regulated. And I suppose, you know, people could call down to Acme Township and talk with elected officials down there or the zoning administrator and ask them what kinds of complaints, if any, they get about that. You know, I guess,
Don't you, again, don't you think that's still in the ordinance stage?
to me, that
When
would
you're
be,
writing the
that
ordinance?
the survey is
that
more
research?
general.
that,
The
that,
survey is more general.
how many events you have?
Yeah,
Yeah, I agree with
That-
that.
Right.
So I'm merely trying to address the scope of where these things could land. Because right now, if you go through this, we really have no parcels of land in the agricultural district that have 0 acres.
But Lindsay said they could come in on a piece of commercial land, and if there are no existing barns on commercial land, then someone could build one. They could come in the commercial district.
Commercial is out of this scope. This is, commercial is a use by, not by right, but a use by special use. And so, even having the word commercial district on the survey is misleading to the people because they are currently allowed. And there's no argument there. Commercial use
Well,
is
the reason-
allowed in the commercial district.
well, the reason why commercial's there is so that they can tell us, maybe that's the only place they want them at. So you gotta give them the option to pick.
But it's already allowed, so.
But that's just